Hey everyone.
Hi.
All right. So right now we are currently just doing the Tarot for America. How are you?
Good. How are you?
I'm doing quite a bit better. So,
Good. That's always good to hear.
hmm so for those of us just joining us, welcome to Ossiana Makes Contents Tarot for America. This time around we're doing it with my new online coven, House of Bast.
Oh,
You
cool.
can join us on Substack at House of Bast, with house being spelled Havs, kind of stylized.
Cool. I like
So,
that.
right? So, hey Bill, hey Michael Clements. This is pretty much one of those things which I started to do because I noticed that a lot of us in the US and also around like Canada and the like, we've been seeing like some crazy stuff going on with our politics. Um, every other day it feels like we get thrown for another loop. Like it's kind of insane how much stuff we end up having to just deal with emotionally simply because our politics have become so unstable.
Right.
And I know that a lot of us we're all kind of wondering like what can we do? How can we survive? This, that, and the other. So uh Terra for America was kind of born from the idea that hey, we all kind of need a little sense of stability, a little bit of something to look forward to, advice. And while, tarot can never fully predict the future, it can help us act as a grounding base. Like as I said, like this is technically for, for whatchamacallit, entertainment purposes only. But
Okay.
at the same time, I've noticed that psychic readings can be just as therapeutic as, say, going to a doctor or having the right supplementation for whatever you're trying to come through, because sometimes you just need somebody to tell you everything's going to be okay.
Absolutely. When you're anxious, just having someone say it's going to be okay, you're going to get through it. That's very comforting.
And today we have Karen Marie Shelton, who is one of the most talented astrologers I've ever met.
Oh, good.
And sorry, if you just see me like yank the pole, that's because my cat has decided to take his first pole dancing lessons.
Oh, that's great.
Like for real, like the one just walking away. That is Blitzo, and he was trying to knock over the pole. He was like, "Okay, I can be a pole dancer too, mom."
I like Blitzo.
Blitzo's the shit starter, but we all love him.
I love Blitzo, which is the one that was dressed up as the Mexican cat.
That was Octavia. We also call her Little P,
Little P.
and sometimes we call her Pita Gordita.
Well, okay. I'll never remember that.
Oh, sorry, I have to actually. There we go. Awesome. All right, so Karen, I know that you've been looking at charts left and right. So
Yes.
let's hear a little bit about what you've been seeing for the upcoming couple of weeks, months. I know that there's a lot of crazy stuff going on.
Well, first and foremost, in fact, I was on the phone today talking with someone who was very upset about his stock. And the market has been in the toilet now for a couple days. It really has reversed significantly. Like I read somewhere over $1 trillion has been lost on paper in the market. Gold is in no man's land, and some of the other metals are going crazy. What's happening on the 9th of this month, which not too long ago, Mercury went retrograde in Sagittarius. Mercury goes retrograde. It doesn't really go retrograde. It just appears in the sky the way we're looking at it. It appears to go backwards. It's not really. But when that happens, Mercury's known as the great trickster. And so a lot of things, some people worry about Mercury retrograde, like, oh my gosh, this is a terrible thing. Well, it's not really. It's a retracing, and it's a really good time. Like, for example, if you had an argument with someone you really wish that you hadn't argued with, it's communication. It's a good time to circle back and say, hey, how do we fix this? How do we get back on track? A retrograde can mean getting things back on track. Unfortunately, the market was really going crazy in some aspects. And Mercury is saying, okay, we need to retrace here. We need to rethink this a little bit. It's the trickster. You never really know what's happening. So there was a reversal. It'll probably smooth out. We have Mercury retrograde till the end of the month. And then we're in the shadow for a little while and then we go forward. Things get really messy. There's a really great astrologer on Substack called Elizabeth Grace. And she likes to say that when Mercury is retrograde in Sagittarius, things get messy. And they have been messy. There's been a lot of messy stuff with politics. Look what happened with the government. That was a whole big mess. Look what's happening with the Epstein files. That is a ginormous mess. There's just a lot of messiness right now. And that's Sagittarius. The good news is that Mercury is only retrograde for a short period of time. It happens 3 times a year, but it's pretty quick, and just, buckle up and recognize that it'll change. Also, Jupiter, which is the planet of abundance and has been in Cancer, which has to do with food and family, our home, our home, the United States. The United States, a lot of people believe, is a Cancer country. It has been in a lot of chaos. It went retrograde recently, and a lot of those things are retracing. It'll go direct again, and it'll continue on until next summer when it moves into Leo. So, in right now, we also have the planet Neptune and Saturn in Pisces retrograde for one last hurrah. And then they're both going to move in January, towards January 26th. They'll be moving into Aries. Neptune will stay there for quite some time, but Saturn will be there for about 2.5 years. So there's just a lot of change going on. There's a lot of reboot, a lot of reset. So I know it's a time of anxiety. A lot of people are very anxious about the stock market, about the job market, about everything, politics. Just relax, because everything is unfolding. Everything is just equalizing to where it needs to be. And we'll start seeing some really big changes starting at the beginning of the year. So, but for now, just, chill out a little bit as much as you can and give Mercury a chance to kind of reset everything. And that's where we're at.
That sounds pretty much on point with what I've been noticing. I definitely would say that the biggest issues I've definitely seen on a grander scale is that the United States seems to be in like this weird communication turmoil. And I think we've all started to notice it, especially on Substack, where people will actually sign up for my podcast, my blog post, whatever, and they find themselves magically unsubscribed. Or they'll sign up for a bunch of left-wing stuff, and all of a sudden they're getting right-wing stuff. And that's actually, I believe that that's actually like a Mercury type thing.
Yeah, I do too.
And I also think it's a bit of a Saturn type thing, because Saturn deals with politics, crime, this, that, and the other. So how are you seeing that unfold? Because I think that like Mercury being retrograde and then going back to normal, I feel like it's going to start letting up for a lot of people.
It will. As you and I've talked, because I've looked at your chart, and I mentioned that things were going to be kind of up and down, but that you would start seeing more of an up than a down. And I see for you next year, because, you have Capricorn, but you also have Pisces and Aries in your chart. I think that when Saturn goes into Aries, it's going to give you a lot of structure and a lot of organization, where you're going to be able to create the plan that you really feel comfortable with, because you've been sort of searching for what you want to do. And Saturn will give you that structure, that formation. So you'll be able to say, I really believe I'm on a good path. I'm going to go down this path. I'm going to stick with it, because Saturn allows you to learn lessons and stick with things. So I think that a lot of people, if they can just get through the end of the year, Mercury does have some rulership over, communications. And of course, right now, Uranus, which does whatever it wants. It's super independent. It is getting ready to be in Gemini for a very long time. And Gemini's communication. So I think there's just going to be a lot of, upheaval in communication, at least for the next year. So, and that would impact social media sites. In fact, I know you're on Medium as well.
Mm-hmm.
I'm an editor on Medium. And over the last month, they upgraded their software, and it has caused major chaos in some regards where the software doesn't work. Today I was trying to do some editing and it was kicking me out of the page back and forth. And you were talking about the Substack issue with people being unsubscribed. I have problems with my email now where I'll send an email and it'll bounce, and I know it's the right email address. So it's
Mm-hmm.
just a lot of chaos with that whole area, and it just requires you to be very patient and also maybe have backup plan. Maybe send the email from more than one account or follow up. With a text. Hey, I sent you an email. Right now, we just have to double check everything. And if people signed up for you and then were magically unsubscribed, then tell them, hey, I really appreciate you. Can you try to subscribe again? I think that will eventually balance.
That's it's gonna balance out. So one of the things that I've heard, and tell me if I'm wrong, but I'm sorry, Blitzo has decided that he wants to be the star of the show. I'm not sure if you've been seeing the little white cat.
Yes.
Oh, and now he wants you to see him roll. Okay, cat is rolling.
Is
Okay,
that
Blitzo, are you
Blinko?
done being a ham?
Is that Blinko?
Blitzo, yeah.
Blitzo, Blitzo, Blitzo. I'm sorry, Blitzo. Blitzo, what are you up to? Hi, Blitzo. Wow. Blitzo's holding court.
Yep, he's a little bit of a ham,
Now,
but
Blitzo was going to be dancing on the pole, right?
he was trying to climb up on the stand that I have for the cell phone. There we go. Are you happy now, sir? Okay. There we go. He's just being a ham. Everybody who's seen my podcast has known that my cats will literally just join in and just try to steal the show. So this is him doing that. So let's talk a little bit about the Tarot for America, because I think that a lot of us have been kind of curious about what's going to happen next, because it's starting to feel like a soap opera just watching standard American politics these days, and I never thought I'd say that. Um, I do think I do think that we have a lot of questions about the Epstein files. So let's try to get a little bit more on what's going on there.
Okay, but I have a comment about the Epstein files. And maybe this is something you want to consider when you do your spread. So I believe that even if we really get the real Epstein files, that somebody hasn't gotten, hold of them and redacted everything, even if we get the real hardcore facts, even if it shows that Donald Trump and a whole bunch of people have done all these heinous things to hordes of young girls, young boys, young people, how do we know that even if we have it, we can see it with our eyes, this really happened? How do we know that anything punitive will happen to any of these people? I mean, sometimes I feel like some of these people that are in the core of this group that is being protected by these files, if we saw them on TV committing murder, I'm not sure that it would have that big of an impact to a lot of people. Do you agree with me?
So that's actually a very interesting question, because I used to think that we were a country that had a lot of justice. And I say I used because, like, I've actually gone to the FBI for my own cases. I still report people whenever they send me death threats online and stuff like that. And what I've noticed is that, specifically when it comes to the Epstein files and this, for lack of a better term, pedocon or pedocracy that we seem to have, there is so many people who are trying to excuse what they're seeing in this society, and they're like, oh well, it's not that bad because it's not what's the word, it's not that bad because it's not a 10-year-old or a 9-year-old or a 4-year-old. And we recently saw on Fox News a woman saying that, of all things, like a woman. Like, you'd think that, like, women would want to protect their kids. Obviously, like, there's something not right there. And I used to believe that justice is always going to end up being served. The thing is that we've been a frog boiling in a pot of water. And, like, in real life, most of us, like, when we get into a hot tub that's too hot, Ask me how I know. I literally just came out of a hot tub. Um, we're like, okay, this is starting to get uncomfortable. I'll leave. But when it is that kind of oddly slow boil, what usually ends up happening is that the frog dies before it gets out. And I think that to a point, a lot of people have wrapped up their identity in this fake Christian pedocon politic party, where if they were to actually admit that what they were backing is wrong, it would fundamentally mess up their egos. And I think that it actually would fundamentally mess up their idea of who they are as people. So rather than do that, they're going to bend over backwards to come to any sort of excuse whatsoever to avoid towing the line. Like, we've all seen that one interview with a guy who, when he was asked, "Hey, would you allow Trump to rape your child?" The guy goes, "Well, he's kind of an alpha man and he's a man of God, so I would allow him to have sex with my 12-year-old." Yes. Like, that's the level of brainwashing we're talking about. So, no, I don't think that everybody is going to be able to actually come to terms with what we have, and I don't think that a full level of justice is going to be brought. What I do think is gonna end up happening is that I think enough of us are gonna be talking, and there's gonna be enough of a stigma that it's going to make people forcibly change their ways.
I hope so. But,
Like
you're right. You're right. I had a friend growing up and her father beat her to a pulp. I mean, where she wound up in the hospital. And she would always say, "Oh, well, I was a bad child and I deserve to be punished." And, she was completely oblivious to the fact that she was being beaten almost to death. And finally, several years later, she started going to therapy and she finally recognized the fact that, oh my gosh, I was abused, I was beaten, and it destroyed her because her image of who her father was and the relationship that she had and how she grew up, it was devastating for her. I mean, she worked through it, but it took her a very long time. I think that's what you're talking about when you say, like the man who said, well, he's a good man. I'd let him have sex with my 12-year-old daughter. I mean, maybe that's the whole thing that if they had to stop and go, wow, I'm worshiping this person and he's done all these horrible things. What am I? What am I thinking? What am I looking
mhm.
at? So
And that's one of the reasons, like, in my last podcast, like, a couple hours ago, we are actually talking about the cult of 45, like, or cult 47, whatever you wanna call it. But one of the things that all cults do is they enshrine you and envelop you in this new identity. And it happens so slowly that 90% of the time you don't realize how deep in you are until somebody actually points out that you no longer act anything like how you used to.
the frog concept.
Hmm. And one of the things that radicalized a lot of people was this idea of, okay, I was just making edgy jokes as a teenager, and then all of a sudden I got ostracized because I used the wrong word, or I told women to go make me a sandwich. They can't even take a joke. Well, after that, they start getting pushed further and further away from left-leaning people until they're like, "Oh my God, those people are awful. They're so mean to me. I'm gonna hang out with these Nazis because at least they like me and I can say what I want to say." I've seen this happen to a lot of my friends. I've seen even myself at times getting pushed away from other leftists because, you do have to actually think about how your words matter. And sometimes it's not nice to actually be told, "Hey, you need to check yourself." But when when you see that repeatedly happening, it does radicalize people and it does kind of like put you at odds with decent people. And what ends up happening with a lot of these people is that they're like, okay, so I can either admit that I was wrong and I have to deal with a bunch of smug Democrats saying, oh, yeah, you only cared because it hurt you now. Or I can just triple or quadruple down and everything just at least stays the way that it is on the surface. So that's one of the things that people don't quite understand is that, like, in order to unwind from that cult, You actually have to be very like polite with them. You have to be very accepting. You can't judge from what they've been doing. And it is going to be hard for a lot of us because a lot of us have actively lost a lot of things in our lives that we cared about. Like, I don't know anybody who, like, lost a family member into an ICE camp who's gonna be able to look at a Republican and go, "You know what? You can still be a decent person." There's not gonna be a single person who's gonna be able to do that. So, trying to unravel that cult influence is gonna be hard. It's the same reason that you have Jehovah's Witnesses and, other evangelicals going door to door. They're expecting you to be mean to them. They're expecting you to, turn them down. They're doing that not to convert you. They're doing that to keep the cult members in the cult.
Wow. Wow. Well, I don't know if you read, but, there was a judge somewhere that went and physically inspected an ICE facility, and it was so horrible that she made them, I think release most of the people, but she said that people were sleeping next to overflowing toilets on the ground in these ICE facilities. It's just shocking. I mean, how can anybody go through that and not change their opinion?
Yeah, right now what we're seeing is we're seeing a country where a lot of the actions of Trump and his cronies are going to radicalize thousands, if not millions, against the United States. When it gets to the point that every single South American knows somebody who has either died in ISIS care or had a child who was ripped from their parents or, had a police officer gloating about shooting their best friend or whatever, it's going to be nearly impossible for America to be able to get back to that level of fame and acceptance and love that we once had in the 90s and 80s. Everybody is going to look and they're going to be like, okay, so you guys are cool with me for the next 4 years, but are you going to put me in a gas chamber in the next? Like, people forget that even for like decades after World War II, Germans were persona non grata throughout most of the European Union before, European Union was a thing. But like, even in the 60s and 70s, they were making fun of Nazis. They're making fun of Germans. They would, like, that was an entire thing on like Faulty Towers and other Britcoms. Like, there was every single civilian had to pay the price of what they voted in. And it's going to be the same thing here. I don't need to be psychic to tell you that. Especially
Tragic.
like Karen, you and me, like we're as left as they come. But we also look like we could probably have been part of the Hitler Youth because of our hair, skin, and eye color. So people are going to make assumptions simply because I'm white, because you're white. They're going to like, okay, so were you actually leftist or were you a Trumper? And we're going to actually have to back it up with, hey, look, I marched against this. I did this. I did that. And it's going to be rough for a lot of white people, but it's not going to go anywhere near as rough as the shit that we're putting our minorities in America through.
It's tragic. It's absolutely heartbreaking. It makes me cry. It does. It makes me sit there and cry sometimes. When I read some of the news stories, I just cry. It's just so terrible. And that was my question though. I mean, will we ever get this justice that we deserve in regard to this?
Let's ask that because I
Okay.
got a bunch of new tarot decks. I think I showed you guys this one earlier. This is the kitten tarot,
Oh yeah, the
which
kitten tarot. You
actually,
really like that one.
yes, just in case you guys want to check it out, the kitten tarot, it actually has feline models that were part of foster care and were part of the creator's own
Aw,
foster system. So they were all adopted out and they were all honored with their image on a cute little tarot deck. I'm not sure if you guys can tell, but as the priest of House of Bast, I do worship cats. I love cats. As you can also see, cats love me because otherwise they wouldn't be the little furry divas that they are. So let's start asking a couple questions about justice because it's getting to the
You want
point
to
where it's
s
very. Mhm.
I do wanna say you look extremely relaxed today. Very peaceful, very calm. I'm very happy to see that.
Yeah, I mean, today I'm gonna be real with everyone. I kind of supplemented pretty heavy on kratom, but the truth is that this is like the first day I've actually had about 16 hours of sleep
Oh, good.
in a
So
long
glad.
time.
I'm so glad.
Uh, as many of you guys know, I actually kind of suffered a little bit of a nervous meltdown because I was working so hard that I wasn't actually able to sleep.
I'm glad
And
you were able to sleep.
now that I've actually had a couple of weeks, and while I'm not proud of it today, I definitely slipped up on the kratom. I've actually been able to energize myself. I've been able to like motivate myself, and it's been very good for not only the amount of content that I've been doing, but also just for like my sanity. Um I'm currently like lining up a couple more pinup shoots so that, you
Good.
know,
Excellent.
I can I can do my loyal fans thing because I do actually enjoy modeling in
Yeah.
skimpy outfits. It's one of my favorite things to do.
Well, you do it very well, and you always look great, so I'm glad you're doing it, and I'm glad you relaxed, I'm glad you had sleep, and I was a little worried about you, so I'm really glad that everything smoothed out for you.
I mean, for a while it was looking like I was probably going to end up being 5150'd. So, I definitely understand I understand the concern. After today I'm probably going to go down to about 3 bottles of feel free per day. I have a couple of things that I've been using as a system to try to help me out. Obviously, due to the political atmosphere, it's been kind of hard for me. A lot of the stuff that they're talking about with the Epstein files, it hits very differently for me for obvious reasons. So let's find out a little bit about the justice that we want.
Okay.
All right. I'm going to ask
Justice on
these.
the Epstein files.
What's going to happen with justice on the Epstein files? Are we actually going to see the comeuppance that we want? Okay, so this is interesting. There's definitely oh yeah, there's definitely trickery afoot, and I see a man and a woman um hitting it. But this is interesting. I see like okay, so the first card that I see is that there's kind of an uphill battle, and I see this a lot like Trump trying to fend off all the attacks, and it's just not working. Every single time I've pulled this card for myself, it's like I'm trying to fend off attacks from all sides, but something always breaks and the person on the hill always ends up getting overcome. I realize that's not like the standard interpretation of this card, but that's what I've seen. So it does look like it's coming out in the open. Now, the 3 of Wands, which is next, that's usually like looking out above, having multiple options, trying to figure out what your next plan is. And I definitely see a lot of planning, but I also see that this could also be an oversight committee. Because look, this guy is like looking all over the lay of the land. So it looks like there is going to be some oversight to this. Now, here's where things get really interesting. I pulled these out one after another, the Magician and the High Priestess. Now, for those of you guys who are not very familiar with tarot, both of these cards are known for underhanded dealings. And the Magician is usually like the trickster of the cards, right? So this is the kind of guy who'll be like, "Hey, look over here." Then he'll just like slowly like take his other hand and just go try to like rearrange this. And I definitely get this feeling that this is Trump right now. But I also get the feeling that it could be an adversary of his who's trying
That
to
would be good.
distract him from something so
That'd be
that
good.
they just drop the files. Like most of the Epstein files that have gotten leaked, they were supposed to be redacted, but they weren't. And Trump has already shown up, as did Virginia Giuffre. So, like, that was a really big magician moment because it was the Republicans, not the Democrats, who leaked those. Interesting how that works, right? Now, the next one is the High Priestess. And the High Priestess is usually like a card of feminine power, intuition, hidden intrigue with women. And sometimes I've seen the high priestess denote a woman who had underhanded dealings, such as the woman who might seduce a boss in order to get the raise and then just push out the other girl, or the school gossip where she just like spreads mean rumors about all this. And this is interesting that it came right with the magician because it almost denotes a team to me.
A
It's a man
theme? Yeah,
it's a
theme.
man and a woman team, and now we've seen Jeffrey Epstein and Virginia Jeffrey. Not Virginia Jeffrey, Ghislaine Maxwell, that's her name. Hello, Mark.
Hi, Mark.
um yeah, so we're just talking a little bit about the Epstein files, and we were talking a little bit about like how Ghislaine Maxwell, she was just as underhanded. She was just as conniving as Epstein. And it was interesting that Epstein ended up saying that he hated Trump. Epstein openly admitted that there was not a good cell in that man's body. And coming from somebody like him, that's saying something awful, you know?
Like the devil
So,
calling, Hitler bad.
yeah. So it's interesting that I see like this pair of people working together, and they're both tricksters in their own right. Now, the next two cards were interesting as well because it shows the Empress, which is a woman in high power. Traditionally, like this was like a queen type energy. She was in charge. She was the lady of the house, so to speak. Followed up with the Hermit, who is a loner, who is often searching for something but not quite finding. And whenever I've told the Empress, I've always imagined her as being a very popular lady. Like, this is usually the one who she's like the ringleader in a group of mean girls, or she's like the benevolent CEO of a company. It's a woman who's very much in full power. And it's always interesting that most of the time she's depicted as a blonde haired woman. And I keep seeing a blonde haired woman coming and messing up Trump. I think what's actually going to happen here um as far as the justice goes is that the biggest justice that could happen is the stigma of being left out in the cold. And finally I got the last one, which was an Ace of Pentacles, which means that there may be an offer of money as a way of trying to make things better for the people who still survived.
Did you see what Mark had to say?
Yes, Trump is at the very least aligned with keeping the Epstein files close to the public and socialist as well as capitalist. Yeah, like he's def like Trump himself is probably going to be it wouldn't shock me if he was actually the real ringleader instead of Epstein. I get the feeling that Epstein was hired as a foreign asset. I think that Trump got the same thing, but I think that it's going to end up being that Trump was the puppet who really, yeah. Trump is a capitalist first as America first has been abandoned with agreements with other nations. That's absolutely correct. Trump is a Russian asset. You can't convince me otherwise.
No, I've thought that for years, since 2016, his first go round.
Yeah, everything about the way that Project 2025, the globalist agendas, yes, you're absolutely right. Everything about Project 2025, if you notice, it's actually about kneecapping the common man. For all that they say that they really care about the common American person, all of their policies are designed to further enslave us, and it's not working as well as they thought it would. And does it not look different from communist goals? In my opinion, it's very different because communism, my mom came from a communist country. Everybody had a house, everybody had medical care, everyone had a quality education. You never had to worry about not having a job. The food lines were rough, but you know what? Everyone had food. And that's not something that we can say here. And it's a pity that that's the truth of it. I would
Well,
much rather live in a communist country than on whatever the hell you call this.
Project 2025 on one of the chapters, I don't know which one, they talked about bankrupting Snap. Did you know
Yeah.
that? Eliminating Snap completely. Here we are.
That's what they're trying to do. And I think that a lot of what's going on with Project 2025 and the like, I don't think that they were expecting such a huge blowback from the common man because nowadays, like, you can see it online, you can see it in person. Yes, socialists stand for most of the human race. And I think that most people agree that, oh, by the way, this one fell out. It's the Knight of
Whoa.
Swords. So something is very rapidly approaching about this, and
Yes.
it's going to act like a tornado.
Yeah.
So let me just ask a little bit. Is Trump going to see justice related to the Epstein files? Because I don't think everybody on that list is going to,
No, there's
but I
probably
do
people
believe
that are working, negotiating to get, left out of the pile. You know what I mean?
exactly. I think a lot of them, I think maybe some of the tricksters that we saw there, a lot of them might actually just be talking and being like, listen, just keep me out of it. What do I have to do? Who do I have to say in order
Yeah.
to get out of it? And I think that that might be part of what we're seeing. So let's ask specifically about Trump. Is Trump going to face justice? Okay, I got the Page of Pentacles. I got a contract. Okay, so people, you're not gonna like what I say about this. Um, the last card that I pulled, because I pulled three, that's the Four of Swords, and that's like it usually means relief and rest. But I find it interesting that the Page of Pentacles came, which is usually like a small offer of like a fraction of what you normally would owe for this.
Uh-huh.
What are them cards? These are the Rider Waite Tarot deck. They're just
Yeah. Is
minis
that the
because
one
they
you're
fit
using
better.
there? Okay.
Yeah. So, this is the Three of Pentacles. This tends to symbolize contracts, litigation, court work. And I think that at this point, this could also be the slow moving Congress. I read into future events with persecutions. I mean, I try to see what I can, but what these do is they basically give a snapshot of energy as is. So they're not 100% going to be able to tell anything, but I like to use them. I give people like a little bit of a grounding idea of like what could happen. A lot of people have been watching my Tarot for Americas and they've noticed that a lot of it has come true. So finally, the fourth one is the this is actually a crypt, and it's usually kind of, yeah, our species condition. You could say that. So the fourth card that I pulled is the Sepulcher, which is it usually means like resting and relief. It often means like sanctuary. So like when somebody is going through a lot of stuff and I pull this, I'm gonna be like, look, you're gonna have a safe space to go to. You're gonna be able to rest for a bit. But if you looked at the card, it's actually a crypt, which means that there's often an underlying aspect of death to it. So what I'm intuiting from these cards is that it will start to be brought to Congress and it will start to be brought into the light and people are going to start, putting in files and putting in motions. But Trump might die before he actually gets the full sentence.
What I find is interesting, if you look on a parallel basis at what's happening in England, the UK, look what has happened to the royals who were involved with, is it Epstein or Epstein? Look at Fergie and how she's basically homeless now because they discovered that she was sucking up to him and that her ex-husband, who lost, all of his royal privileges, he lost his titles because they found conclusive evidence that they were in collusion with him. Look what's happening in the UK. They're not standing for it. They're like, okay, we know you guys were involved. You're persona non grata. But that's not happening in the US.
Exactly. So here's the interesting thing. They were standing for it for a very long time and people don't want to admit it, but like they all knew that Prince Andrew was a what they call a nonce over there. They all knew, but they were trying to avoid having that come out in such an ugly way. So what they did by just stripping him of their title is like, dude, look, this is just getting out of hand. I can't be seen with you. This is the equivalent of a royal family Hollywood kiss off, if you know what I mean.
Oh,
Where they're
yeah.
like, look, You
I
can
mean,
never
look what
work
they
in
did
this
to
town again. You're done.
Fergie's basically homeless. She went from
Yeah.
having a royal title and living in a royal mansion with, you know, nothing. And she's
Well,
not
that's
even officially part of the royal family. She was a in-law. She wasn't even
Mhm.
Andrew's. I mean, they're taking it out on both of them. And they found a letter from her to Epstein or Epstein, however you want to say it, where she was sucking up to him because they had to put on a front for the UK, for the British royals, that they weren't involved with him. But then later she sent him a letter saying, "Oh, I'm so sorry. And we really appreciate all you've done for us." And that has all come out and they're just done. Like you said, the kiss
yeah.
off. They have been kissed off.
And what's interesting is that a lot of people don't understand the way that aristocracy works as a family unit. And this is something that I've seen a lot in the upper classes, as well as like in my own background. Like when you're in an aristocratic family where you have all eyes on you, or where you're dealing with people who have millions upon millions of dollars, the money that they have is not your money. It is never your money, even if you earn it for the family. It is the family's money. Now, when it comes to their reputation, the same thing applies. You can't just do anything that you want to. That's one of the reasons that like people revere the royal family as much as they do in Britain and places like that, or in upper caste areas, because these people, they literally are giving up their entire lives, all of their own personal preferences, so that they can present an image that jives with the soft power elucidation, the soft power grip that royals have always had. They were one of the most effective diplomatic tools that Europe has ever had.
Uh-huh.
And while they're not officially allowed to be political, whenever they really want to have a squeeze, if you bring the Queen of England or whatever, God rest her soul, to a place and she asks, 9 times out of 10 people will give it. That is a level of service that most people don't understand. They can't eat what they want to eat. They can't wear what they want to wear. My nails are not aristocratic. They would have to be plain. They'd have to be perfectly trimmed. Like all these little things, it eats at your soul. And to get the Hollywood kiss off, you really have to screw up because they literally only have each other in that
Right.
kind of rank.
Exactly. Well, that's why Meghan Markle, I guess, had so many problems because she was shocked at the level of iron control that was imposed upon her, and she couldn't handle it. I mean, outsiders generally can't. But the point being is like the UK said, "Hey, we're not going to continue to support him because that indicates that we are turning a blind eye to the horrible things that happened. And we're not turning a blind eye. This was a terrible thing and we are cutting him off." So the question is, they did it. Why are we not doing it?
Because we're little bitches here. That's the truth of it. America does right now we're kind of seeing a little bit of a crisis of spirit in America. And I mean, it's one of those things where we always had this growing up. America was beautifully propagandized to believe it was the greatest country in the world, that there's freedom, justice, the American way, everyone is treated equally. When you grow up, you start realizing, hey, this is not true.
Propaganda.
Completely random question. Why do so many people make the ring finger a different nail color? It's called an accent color, and it
Oh,
means that I just could not I couldn't decide between this color and this color. So I decided to do both.
you want to hear something funny today? It's not related to nails, but today I went out for breakfast with my husband and I was craving pancakes, which I haven't had probably in years. But then somebody went by with a tray of French toast, and I was thinking, oh, I haven't had French toast either. So I ordered both. I couldn't eat very much, but I ordered both. So in a way, it's kind of like an homage to you having multiple colored nails.
I understand that. So let's get a little bit more into why it's so hard to actually get actual justice in the upper castes of America. And I think that like the non-psychic and the me just seeing the very obvious elephant in the room, it's all about money. America's a very greedy country, but I don't think that that greed is going to last for much longer. And
That's interesting.
huh?
That's an interesting observation. I agree
Um
with you,
s-
but it's interesting. I don't hear very many people talk about that.
so with America, if you got enough money, you can make anything go away. Affluence is a thing. And I think that's one of the reasons why we don't see people stripped of their ranks. And I think that to a point, what we're seeing right now is we're seeing the ultra wealthy realize that they can't shut us all up.
That's true.
Um, it's Mark Schultz says there's no Judeo-Christian laws. The Justice Department has been corrupted. Well, it's not supposed to be Judeo-Christian. We're supposed to have a secular government that allows everybody to practice their own religion as long as it does not harm anyone. And that, I think, it
Reparations.
would be the most fair thing for everyone, because if I was a deity, I'd be like, hey, I want everybody to feel comfortable in my own homeland. But let's find out what's going on with the state of greed in America.
Separation of church and state, which has
Yeah.
totally gotten destroyed, that idea.
So I decided to pull a couple cards about greed in America, and it's very interesting what I got. I'm going to pull one last one. So right now, I'm going to show you the first three cards, which is like the current situation and the slight past. There is, in fact, a war going on. There's a fight. Well, yes, secular. Okay, secular protection of our own culture, yes. But so there is a fight, and it's interesting that after the fight, I got the star card, which is usually like a sign of star power as well as like hopes and dreams. So like while we're currently like struggling with everything, we are kind of dealing with a lot of hope. We're starting to see a way through this, and I know I'm not the only one who sees that. Now that like social media is booming on it, we're starting to force the hands of mainstream media simply because they can't shut us all up. And if mainstream media keeps trying to pretend to look the other way, they start losing their credibility. And that's exactly what's been happening. Everybody's been noticing the muzzling. Everyone's been noticing it. They've been calling it out. The more we keep calling it out, the less power they have. Now, I also see the Knight of Pentacles, which is often seen as like a knight of shining armor. Um, I usually view that as like people offering like a token or offering like jobs and positions when it comes to this kind of stuff. This would a good example of like how the Knight of Pentacles would work would be, okay, the underclass is starting to, sharpen their pitchforks, light up some torches. Oh, yeah, that one's looking like they're about to make a Molotov cocktail. How about we give them some tax breaks? Or how about we make sure that they don't end up killing us by making more jobs for them temporarily? They're not actually going to be there, but temporarily, let's just keep them happy for a little bit until we just keep moving forward. I see that, and I see a lot of people who are very, very guilt stricken over this, as well as a lot of people panicking about their money.
There's a
I
lot
am
of
for the poor
people
and
panicking
homeless, yeah.
about money right now. A lot of
Like
people.
there's a lot of people they're having an existential crisis because they can't afford health care, they can't afford this, they can't afford that. And it's one of those things where it's kind of insane, like how much horrors we're unleashing on our fellow man. But here's the interesting thing that I found. These are the next in the future, and I asked about the state of American greed and what's happening. We got the 9 of Cups, which is usually a sign of a wish come true. Something is going to come to satisfaction. Now, I can't tell whether it's satisfaction for the ruling class or otherwise, but I do see a lot of signs of wealth here. So they might actually get what they want. However, it's going to not be a complete victory. So what ends up happening here is I'm seeing the King of Wands, I see a change in leadership. And the King of Wands is a lot more artistic, it's a lot more humanitarian. Not as humanitarian and as empathy heavy as, say, the King of Cups, but it's a lot better than, say, the King of Swords, which is what we would have right now.
But think about it. We just had the elections and there's been a shift in leadership.
There has been. And finally, the last card that I got is the Fool, which the Fool is a sign of new beginnings. I keep saying this, like, even in the last couple of Tarot for Americas, I keep seeing that we're going to end up building back, but it's going to break us as a nation beforehand.
Yeah, sometimes you have to completely destroy something to rebuild it. You have to tear it
Mhm.
down and start over.
What do you see as far as greed in America goes in terms of, a astrological thing?
Well, right now, Pluto is changing signs, and Pluto destroys everything that's not working and requires complete uh, reconstruction. And that's where we are right now. In fact, Pluto is in the early signs of Aquarius, and it's going to be there for quite some time, for more than a decade. And so that means that when Pluto comes in, anything that's not working gets destroyed, whether you try to save it or not. It's like the
It's
ultimate
gone.
judge.
Mhm. The
So,
last Yeah, the last time that we had a Pluto transition like this, it was the American Revolution and the French Revolution.
yes,
And that
we
was
talked about
when that was when we first started the birth of America. That's when French people stopped being a monarchy and they started going for liberty, brotherhood, and equality. That's actually the thing. Liberté, fraternité, et égalité. That's the
Civil War
French
too.
motto.
The Civil War, and look what's happening now. After the Civil War, you had the carpetbaggers who were going around and stealing land and stealing everything they could from anybody they could. There was also the whole issue of slaves, and people didn't want to let go of their slaves. And all of a sudden, it was a complete change in that whole process. Well, if you look at it, look at how the immigrants are being treated now. I mean,
Uh-huh.
they're being treated as a form in a sense, it's a form of slavery, right? Would you agree with that?
Yeah, it is. It's a form of indentured servitude, and that's actually never really gone away. Um, but I'm not sure if you guys have seen this, but I have a article that I just released on House of Bust about the aurora borealis. Now, let's talk a little bit about that because that is aurora borealis is the northern lights. And they had a G4 level solar storm, they're incredibly rare, and they had northern lights as far south as Florida throughout the United States. Now, aurora borealis is a little bit different than most other celestial things that you see because it's not really fixed. It's a sunstorm. And every single culture has a little bit of a different belief system around it. Some people believe that conceiving a child under the aurora borealis will make a child who's extremely like beautiful or smart or who will become a great person. Others believed that it was the spirits of the dead saying hello. And one of the most interesting things that I saw was that red auroras in particular are apparently linked to the death of a king and war.
Oh, wow. Wow. That's interesting.
So, have you ever heard of any sort of like aurora predictions yourself?
No, I really haven't. Although if you go back to, the whole which we know is basically a story, not it's not believed to be factual. But if you think about the three kings and the birth of the baby Jesus, supposedly there were stars, there was a major star, um, something happening with stars. Maybe it could have been an aurora borealis that they said was a special star formation, and that was the birth of a king, according to the story. So it's hard to know. I have not read any parables or metaphysical stories about aurora borealis, but I mean, anything's possible.
So let's ask a little bit more about like other questions. We're gonna whip out the kitten tarot for this one.
Okay.
Do you have any questions for us, Karen?
Um, yeah. Um, was the appearance of the aurora borealis a very significant event in terms of a king?
All right, let's see. Kitten tarot or kitten oracle deck. Let's see what the aurora borealis has to say about this. It's a flea bath. Oh no, look at sad baby. So, a flea bath actually makes sense with the stuff that I was hearing about. Because, well, flea baths are never good. They're not exactly a fun time for cats, you know? They don't really like being put in a bath. But obviously a flea bath is necessary because it helps gets rid of fleas, make sure that the baby is okay, and it's just part of being a cat. You have to have that kind of care for yourself. And it's interesting
So
that huh?
does is that it is really better, safer for them than any other kind of treatment, right?
Yeah.
Flea bath is better.
Yeah. Flea bath is a medical form of treatment. They're not in, but that doesn't mean that they're not entirely necessary for getting rid of parasitic presences that drain your vitality and stay in the way of true well-being.
Ah,
This
true
card is your cue.
well-being.
Huh?
True well-being. The well-being of the nation.
Mhm. And it's saying this is your cue to suck it up, tackle the tough act of purifying your environment, trashing the toxic relationships that you've been hanging on to. And pretty much it's saying, do we accept the fleas we think we deserve? Focus on surrounding yourself on things that nourish and strengthen you. So that goes back to the Pluto thing that you're saying, where it's actually saying, hey, you need to clear out all this stuff or I'm going to clear it out for you.
I really worry about the United States with Pluto. I really seriously worry about it because whenever Pluto changes signs, it is an atomic blast in essence of energy. I mean, there's Pluto just it's the judge. It's like, what have you been doing wrong? And how do we need to fix it? And you really, at that point, Pluto takes action. You really don't have a choice. And I think of Pluto when I think of dropping the bombs in Japan. I think of that as like a Plutonian experience. And I worry, that America seems so corrupt and there's been so much tragedy. I just worry what's going to happen with Pluto.
Let's ask my standard cards for that. Cuz honestly, I think that all of us are in the same boat. We're all kind of nervous right now. All of us are wondering what's going to happen next. Are we going to survive as a country? Um I still see, and I think that Karen, correct me if I'm wrong, you've seen it too with the astrological signs that America does end up kind of coming through and they kind of rebuild, but it's not going to be the same as it was.
No. And to rebuild, you have to go through a lot to rebuild. You might be a lot better after it's over, but the pain and suffering and the
It's
devastation
going
you
to
have to
be
go through.
enormous.
Yeah. And the last time we had this configuration of planets was during the Civil War. So I would not be shocked if not that we had a civil war per se, but that maybe, and I don't know if they can legally do it, but people are doing whatever they want to do now. So maybe that's not even a question legally. But maybe some states will start to leave the union. Maybe we'll become divided as a country. Maybe it'll be red versus blue states. I don't know if it's possible to do that, but if you think about it, California would do very nice without the rest of the United States. So would New York. I mean, the amount
And
of money they
Jersey.
make and yeah. So I wonder if that is something that could happen with the plutonian, with the Uranian energy that's shifting because they're both shifting at the same time. In fact, Neptune's shifting, Saturn's shifting, Pluto's shifting, Uranus. That's four major powerhouses all at the same time, changing signs. So I just
Yeah.
wonder.
And the funny thing is that I was researching the aurora borealis. Guess when was the last time that they had so many crazy auroras in one single month?
When?
September of 1941.
Oh my gosh.
And the time before that was the Franco-Prussian War. And the time before that was the French Revolution, where they actually talked about how the skies would light red of blood. It's really, really fascinating to see exactly the outer Bees Free verse does say the outer planets are the unseen, and that's exactly what it is. It's the unseen that still seems to change every single aspect of what we're seeing. So let's find out a little bit about like what's going to happen with all this Pluto energy for the average American.
That would be a very good question.
I'm seeing a lot of movement. I see families moving around. I see people moving literally houses, or I could see people expatriating. We're going to see a massive exodus of people.
There's already
Um,
been a lot of people pushing to leave because of what's happening with trans rights. Now, luckily,
right.
they did overturn the idea that they could, sue against same-sex marriage. That didn't fly, thank God. But there's just been a lot of abuse on rights that we've had that have been rolled back. I mean, the abortion rights. It's tragic all the things that have happened in those cases, some of those cases.
So I just pulled out the cards, and this is what I got so far. The next two I got were the Lovers, which this is usually a choice because originally the Lovers had three people, not two. And it used to be that the Lovers card was a sign of infidelity, but now it's just become like a sacred union. It's more about sexuality and sensuality. And it's interesting that I asked about this with Pluto energy because one of the biggest issues that we're having right now is this hatred of sexuality, hatred of the opposite sex, hatred of LGBT, this, that, and the other. And it's actually reaching a boiling point because now, due to all the like affronts that people have been having to deal with as single moms, as single dads, as people who, they tried their best and their best wasn't good enough in the dating scene, and people who just were burned out, the birth rates plummeting, like plummeting hard. And it's gotten to the point where in about 10, 20 years, one, even with AI, there's not going to be enough people to keep a functional country anymore. Two, our immigration is completely shot. So that means that there's not going to be enough people for that. And economists see it, and I realize that like humanity has started to run a giant Ponzi scheme in this way, but that has to stop. That has to stop for a healthy society. That has to stop for healthy people. That has to stop for healthy relationships. We have to normalize a lot more different options for relationships. We have to normalize singledom. We have to normalize being okay with having somebody who has hookups once in a while. We have to normalize a lot of things. And that's where we're at. And it's not been working for America at all. Guess what came up next? The Judgment card. Now,
Oh, wow.
here's here's where it gets interesting. Look here. The angel here is a little bit further away, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
coming up. It is coming up.
Yes.
I see that and I see, oh look, there are people here rising out and they're both naked just like they were here. Those people are dead. These people are alive. It's almost as if there's talk about a resurrection of like maybe not necessarily traditional family values, but it's like a resurrection of what is supposed to be human lives. Mark, this is not artist images of of the future. We've gone over this a little bit, but this is a snapshot of the energy that I'm getting and a snapshot of what I think might happen, but as I said, for entertainment purposes only. Um, all right,
Yeah.
so let's talk a little bit
Entertainment
more.
purposes only.
Yeah.
Entertainment purposes. Yeah.
So
But
let's
no,
talk
there
a little bit
has to
more.
be, on so many levels, there has to be a recalibration. There just has to be. And that's another thing that really bothers me because, as you know, I write a lot about abortion rights, human reproductive rights, rather
Mhm.
not just abortion, but just human reproduction. Because North Carolina, they're trying to outlaw, or they were trying to outlaw certain
Birth
types of
control.
birth control. I don't know if that
So,
passed or not, but you know, they're pushing really hard to prevent women from having control over their bodies with reproductive health. And women are fighting back. They're doing everything in their power to reclaim that. Now, if it was open where women could make informed choices with good timing for their lives, maybe the birth rate wouldn't be plummeting so much. Has that ever occurred to you? I mean, not you per se, but has that not ever occurred to people? I mean, that just makes sense to me. And
well,
this is again a Plutonian thing that has to be recalibrated.
so I'm definitely viewing all the angel imagery here as Pluto. Because when I saw the judgment card, that's where Pluto is judging. And he's like, no, this needs to stop. This needs to stop. So the next cards that I got were the Knight of Wands, which is like it's fast paced. It's not as fast paced as the Knight of Swords, but the Knight of Wands is it's kind of how should I put this? The Knight of Wands is me after a binge drinking session, and I just like lose my shit, and I'm just telling everyone exactly what I think. They're not gonna like what they don't. They're not gonna like what I'm gonna say,
Mm-mm.
and a lot of times I can be a mean drunk. So
Ugh, not good.
like, exactly. So that's like Pluto just being like, no, you've got to stop and you've got to stop and you're going to have to deal with this and you're going to have to deal with this. And that's what I'm seeing here. The next is another angel figure, and look at what's right underneath it. It's the caduceus.
Oh,
The
wow.
caduceus is the symbol of healing. And I see the man and the woman together sharing cups. This is often called the other love card. This is the partnership card, which means that from here on, we're going to have to work together. It's going to be both sides seeing that we're both on the same team, even if it never felt like that before. That's Pluto at the end of the day, because what America has done is that we've been basically trying to pin each other as the enemy. And more often than not, we have more in common with the other side than we want to admit. And one of the things that I think Pluto's going to ransack is that feeling of, hey, all these people bleed, they all crap, they all eat food, it's all the same thing. You guys all need to get together to be a global partner, otherwise you guys are going to be screwed. So the next two that I saw really made me feel a lot better. This is the 6 of Pentacles, and this is a wealthy person giving money to beggars. Every time I've pulled this out, it's always been a benefactor of mine who has, you know, helped me when I really needed it. It's like the saving grace. It's where the people who have been done dirty, the people who have been hurt, are getting the help that they needed for so long. And it's a sign that the people who are wealthy, they start to realize, okay, listen, I can't do this without them. I need them to be okay for me to be okay. That's always been the way that I've seen this card in particular work.
Well,
Um,
look how people have stepped up to help people who weren't getting their SNAP benefits. Look how everybody like pulled together to donate money and to donate food and to donate goods. I mean, it was an outpouring of giving. This just happened, in the last couple weeks. So I know
mhm,
we have it there. I know that that goodness, that kindness is there. We have to clear out all the stuff covering it up.
exactly. And the next two, which I think is going to be like the end of the Pluto transition, and that's going to happen in like a couple years from now. The 3 of Cups and the Page of Pentacles, which keeps coming up. Page of Pentacles means that you're likely going to pay less than what you owe, but it's still going to, you know, it's still going to be a major, pardon me, sorry, I'm getting a heads up from my thing. You're still going to end up paying a penalty. There's still going to be stuff that you're doing to make good. And as far as this one, I see a lot of unity. This is the 3 of Cups, and that's usually a fun card. That's where we party together. That's where we unite together. That's where we all kind of realize that we're all each other's fellow man. And I think that that's going to happen just in time for us to actually tackle climate change as a group. Because all this greed that's been pervasive for the past 60, 70 years of US history, if not longer, all it's done is impoverish all of us, including the billionaires. And that sounds, yes, there's a sentient awareness happening right now. Mark Schultz, I absolutely love that phrase because it does feel like it's almost like its own, it feels like its own unique awareness that seems to transcend humanity. You know what I mean? And I believe that all cultures can unite as long as they actually take a look at what they want for themselves and their children. Every single human being on this planet wants to see their kids happy. Every single human being on this planet wants to make sure that the earth is not going to kill us all. Every single human being on this planet wants to know that they have a home to go home to, that they can meet up with their friends on a Friday night or a Tuesday night or whatever it is. Exactly. It does feel like this is our final chance to leave a legacy. And I have my own beliefs about this, but I think that one of the reasons that we're seeing all the drones and stuff like that lately is because extraterrestrials are like, dude, these people are going to end up killing themselves if we don't do something now.
Well, let me remind everyone that Pluto does not go into the next sign, and it does not go into Pisces until 2044, until the beginning of 2044. So we have a very long time. Pluto moves slow. It's very powerful, but it moves slow and steady. It will just keep chipping away until the changes are done. So at least there's that comfort that it's not going to just drop a bomb on us, hopefully, not drop a bomb on us all of a sudden. It will be a lot of small bombs, a lot of small adjustments and changes and equilibriums that have to be addressed, equal behaviors that have to be, healing and dealing with all kinds of toxic behaviors. I mean, it'll be a slow but steady change.
Almost every major fortune teller I've seen who's done something similar to Tarot for America has all they've all said the same thing about the late 2020s, which is what we're dealing with right now, versus the early 2030s. Apparently the 2030s people are a lot more alert and awake to what's gone on. They're a lot more battered, but at the same time they're working towards making things better. And I know that I'm probably going to piss off a couple of people, but I also see a lot of the biggest change coming from the end of all these like 90-year-olds in Congress. Like I was talking about it earlier, Nancy Pelosi actually knew JFK. She's still working. This is insanity. And these are the people who were voting in to decide the future of their grandchildren. And more often than not, it's the same people who end up selling their own kids underneath the bus. It's so messed up.
And grandchildren.
Yeah.
I have to say hello to Brandon. Are you still here, Brandon? Brandon
I
Elridge, so gay, is here. So glad
yeah,
you're here,
so
Brandon. He's one of my favorites. Thank you for
oh,
dropping in, Brandon.
so
I have a lot of hope and faith in the next generations, especially the Z generation, the alphas, the millennials. Are you a millennial?
I am a millennial. I'm actually closer to an exennial because I'm almost 40.
So
I'm like,
you're what do you call a geriatric millennial? Is that what you are?
I lost my dentures.
Anyway, I do think there's some hope. There's a lot of stuff that is messed up, but I think you pulled some really good cards today. It was a really
Uh-huh.
good session, don't you think?
I agree. Does anybody have any question about the cards that we pulled?
We had a good group of people too. Thank you for all the participation in the chat and all the good comments. And yeah,
Mm-hmm.
I don't see anything. Well, we'll have to do this again soon.
Absolutely.
And I'm really
Anyhow,
glad that you're looking so relaxed. I worry about you, I really do, you know, I really do.
I was really running myself ragged, and I'm starting to feel a lot better. There's certain things which I'm currently working on to try to make things a little bit better, but absolutely. Um, oh, Bees Free says that hers was very similar about the future of America. B, if you would like to come on next time, I am free tomorrow, so if you want to do a Tarot for America or do a House of Bast, feel free to hit me up.
Oh, that would be good. The 2 of you together, that would be awesome.
Mhm. I'll
Well,
let
I go ahead.
I was gonna say I'm gonna let you guys go now because I know you have a lot of work to do. I have a lot of work to do.
Okay, well, big kisses and thank you to everyone. Really appreciate it. Really appreciate you, Oceana. I'm so glad you're doing well. Bye.
Not a problem. Bye.